Hey, good morning, everyone, and thank you for attending another round of our CARM open mic session. I'm Maria, the marketing manager at GHY, and I will be moderating the session today. So we've allocated another 30 minutes today for our 7th open mic session. Of course, this session is dedicated entirely to your questions. It's an opportunity to get answers and learn about the most frequently asked questions GHY has received since the official launch of CARM. So here's how we'll manage the questions this session, as we do with every session. First, we encourage attendees to ask their questions live. To do this, please use the raise hand feature by navigating to the top of the Teams window to the meeting controls area and select that little hand icon. We'll call on people in order that the hands were raised. So once we call on you, please turn on your microphone and video to ask your question, then turn them off again when we either have completed answering your question or after you've asked your question and have nothing further to add. And as a special incentive, we're offering a GHY care package that includes a GHY Blue Guy for the best live ask question. So if you'd prefer,
Maria, in addition,
yep,
not only a blue guy, but yeah, just a blue guy. But how about the new and improved blue guy sporting a Winnipeg Jets cancer care jersey and a Stanley Cup pin? The Jets have been having a great season, but no, I guess just a regular one.
Nice, good shout out. Okay, and if you prefer to not ask your question live, that's okay. You can type your question into the Q&A discussion area, and you can access this by navigating to the meeting controls area and clicking on that Q&A icon. So we'll alternate between live questions and those in the Q&A, making sure to address everyone in turn as best we can. So after this session concludes, we'll be sending out links to access the recording of the session and, of course, some other useful resources on CARM to explore. So our speakers today are Al Dewar, GHY's Executive Vice President, and Sarah Marcotte, our CARM and Special Projects Manager. Now let's open the floor with a bit of an intro by Sarah and Al.
Morning, everybody, and thank you so much, Maria. Welcome, everybody. If this is your first time attending one of our sessions, I'll go over a couple just details, and for everybody else who has been joining in on a couple of our sessions, again, welcome back, and hope these continue to be inspirational to you. So main thing we want to always ensure everybody's aware of, border fluidity is what our main concern, it's CBSA's main concern, and our goal is to ensure that your goods continue to release. If for any reason you're having any issues with any border release, by all means, reach out to us immediately. We're here to support, we're here to ensure that continues, but we have seen very little to no issue with that. Last week, we did this a little bit different. We added in more of a visual aid to support questions and to provide a little more guidance to the CARM client portal. So we will do that again. Al is offering to show his site so we can kind of walk you through any of those struggles that you may have. Which I guess we can kind of get into what some of those struggles might be as we answer questions and see where things are. One of the main things that I do want to point out that is very important is some changes to the import and export RMs and the way that we can now obtain those. So CBSA and CRA, they were working together. CRA used to do it, and it's moved over to CBSA. And with the CARM portal going live, that can be done right in the portal, and it's instant. So it's been a little bit of a process to get there, but it is working well. And I can walk through or support people if they need to figure out how to apply for either an import or an export RM, or maybe another customs program.
So what Sarah's just said, that all the entries are flowing through, your goods are crossing the border, that's not a problem. Where the problems are existing is in accounting. So CBSA just announced, I think it was yesterday, it might have been the day before yesterday, they said they had cleaned up some issues that had previously been tested when Sarah and her team were doing the various testing cycles. But CBSA or Deloitte, somebody hadn't put in some of the concessionary or the tariff relief codes that made things duty-free. I'm surprised that they would miss that. In addition, they've had some glitches, shall we say, and things having to do with surtax. So what brokers are doing behind the scenes is they're sending an entry that relates to your particular transaction to see if if they tried to account, would it account correct? Because once CBSA received the entry, they come back with what they believe it should calculate as. And if their calculations aren't the same as the broker's calculations, the brokers are holding back the entries and they're putting in tickets to CBSA to say, what's up? This doesn't work. Our association, our National Association, the Canadian Society of Customs Brokers, they're aggregating these tickets and they're reporting to the brokerage community who are members of it. And they're coming back to us and they're saying, hi, we've got 100 tickets that have been an issue, of which 5 tickets or 10 tickets are appropriately resolved. So there's lots of things that still can't be accounted for, but the brokerage community is working behind the scenes to make sure when they account on your behalf, the accounting matches what you're expecting to see versus you having to pay unnecessarily based on a CBSA calculation. So that's what border fluidity is, and that's where a little bit of the gap is existing. In addition to that, and again, as Sarah starts going into things or we answer questions, some of the things we're going to say, hi, yeah, that's a known ticket, and we're hoping they're going to get around to that because there's a lot of money that has not been paid as yet to the government that is, I'm sure, going to create an impact. So with that, Sarah, if we don't have anything further, we can go into some questions as well as some walking display.
Definitely. I just want to point out, just to ensure everybody is aware, because of these issues, CBSA knew it wouldn't be a day one, everything is going to go well and accounting is going to be perfect. So they have within their customs notice noted that penalties on late accounting and anything that's associated to CARM is going to be withheld for 90 days. We'll see where that goes, if 90 days is going to get us clean and ready to go, but that's there's definitely that been stated, so you don't have to worry if you are seeing anything late. Again, still investigate it, see if you can determine what is going on, and your broker should be there to assist, but you don't have to worry about those penalties.
And do you want to also make reference to, because we're talking about the transition period, so 90 days is no late accounting penalties as CBSA is cleaning up in this hyper care period with Deloitte, what needs addressing before appropriate accounting can take place. But there's also, in addition to the 90 days, there's the 180 days. Do you want to go into that and then we'll go into the questions?
Sure, definitely. So another thing that many importers may have noticed actually is some notifications on your portal asking for you to post security or even letting you know that you have passed your limit. And that is regarding your release prior to payment program and the future requirement to need to post security. But you do have a 180-day grace period to obtain that security. So again, best thing to do would be to work with your customs broker. Let us know if you want us to help obtain that bond on your behalf. We are working with their surety company and, pleased to announce that we'll be able to move forward pretty quickly on starting to obtain those electronic bonds, which is the new process. We won't have to be dealing with paper bonds in the future, and CBSA promises a much more smooth and quick process. So we're hoping to see some bonds being approved at a much faster rate. So again, if you do see those notifications, those are nudges. They're mere nudges, I think Al calls it, and just letting you know that this is something that's going to happen.
I would say, I find this hilarious that CBSA is nudging people that have paid promptly for basically as long as I can remember their bills to CBSA, whereas there's a couple of $1 billion that haven't been paid by people who haven't issued a payment as a result of past debts owing, and we don't know if they're being nudged or what's happening with those. But our job is just, as is yours, to appropriately remit and collect and account, and that's what we're going to talk and walk through right now. So without further ado, Sarah, let's get into a few questions and some show and tell, because I'm a visual learner. I'd rather see things a little bit. So
on that note, just to quickly follow up to the 90-day, I have Mary asking, when is the 90 days up exactly?
January 19th, Mary.
There you go. Perfect.
Looking at April 2025.
Okay, good. So
And
we've
I
got,
see the first person asks me why I didn't mention the Blue Bombers, and I think that goes without saying why I didn't mention the Blue Bombers. Moving on to the next question, but thank you.
Yeah, it's a given. Okay, so we'll go with the first one that came in. If you do your own entry, will you still have to go into the border crossing, at the border crossing, or will they be able to release your load at the window?
So our understanding is that as long as you have pre-complete your what you call a cash or C-type entry, and you have the paperwork to present to the officer at the local port through the window, that should be all that's required. However, I can't say what the officers will do. So that is the process that we've been advised. And there's CBSA had said they would accept payment via the portal, and others have said they will not. So we're still unsure if that's going to become a port by port thing. So I recommend being ready with all your paperwork and being ready to have to pay at the port.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. Let's go to the next one here. When you, as a broker, have finalized entries in CARM, are you having issues receiving acceptance notifications for duty paid notifications specifically from the CBSA?
So I guess I'll try to field that. My answer is going to be no. Like if everything is okay, we're not having any issues in receiving notifications. If things aren't okay, there's different types of problem solving that we're working through in that regard. But by and large, when the portal's working and the calculations are working, everything's fine.
Good, thank you. Okay, we've got Mary wanting to ask a live question here. Mary, did you want to go ahead?
Hi guys, and sorry for all the questions. So you know how on the portal, in your transaction history, your transactions say open.
Right? Well, Sherry's gonna pull that up and see if we can or try to. There we go. So where should we look here, Mary?
Under financial information transaction history.
Okay.
And then all your transactions say open.
Correct. I mean,
if there were any there.
Do you want to go
stuff that you
past the
have
current?
confirmed.
Okay. Great.
Okay, open and paid on the status. So on the 25th, when they issue that statement, that statement is not issued at a transactional level. That's my understanding. It's just going to be pay us this amount, $500,000, give us this amount. And then when the importer or broker pays that statement, is that transaction status going to change in their system to say paid? Will we have a record available that shows that a payment has been made against each transaction?
So the way it's going to work, because again,
great question.
Yeah, definitely. Because it's paying at an account level, not as a transactional level. What you're going to see in here is it's going to be based again on your due dates, right? So we can see here Al has an open item here that is due on the 31st of last month. So if he goes and he makes a payment, that payment will then be applied to the oldest debt. So if he makes a payment in the amount of these three that are still outstanding, then all three of these would be noted as paid. However, if let's paid $14, then it would pay this oldest debt one, and then it would take the next one and it would pay the quantity that it could. And then you would see a new transaction with the outstanding amount. But each transaction won't be noting any separate, like it's not going to separate it and say what's paid it. It's just an assumption that that's been paid based on the
based
the
on
their been sent in. So if you look
based on their programming and everything.
The transaction status to paid, and very good question, Mary. And Sarah,
it'd be nice if
referencing. It's supposed
it'd be nice if they assigned a date to that. Yeah.
With particular circumstances. So let's ask Al. In this case, if we look here, what he did was he decided to apply for a security deposit. So he is applying to do a cash bond, and he posted it for $10. Now, it shows here that he then made a $10 payment. So Al, did you allocate it to that specific entry, or did you just let it do it on its own?
No, I specifically did that for the security deposit. What I was trying to test there is the government happens to, in my account, expect $240. And the only reason they're expecting 240 is because I did a favor for a friend. Normally, my payments would never be more than $20. So then I wanted to see if I could ask for a lesser payment. That choice didn't exist anymore. It did exist in testing, but it doesn't exist anymore. So I then, but I'm just going to put a lesser amount than the 20 even and put it in for 10 and see if the government would accept it. We'll have to see if that in the future, if that impacts my ability to process entries. But right now they took the $10 as is. They show that they hope they can get $240 from me. And they did accept it without any acknowledgement or any questioning of why would I want 10 or even a lesser amount than the 240. So I think we're going to wait and see how that story unfolds.
Yeah, so just to go back to how it will look, if Al had left it and he had put that $10 down, but he had not chosen to apply it specifically, one of the clearing rules is that it is supposed to take that money and apply it to specifics.
I was just going to go to here, right? So
right, but that's what I'm talking about.
Oh, I know, but I thought you might go to it.
So because he requested to specifically pay $10, the system is to look at certain things like old debt, but it also is supposed to look at your penalties and your overdue, your interest, and cash deposits is one of them. So as long as you are submitting an exact payment for the cash deposit that you applied for, it is to take that money and apply for it. So if I go back to transactional history here, and so if we look at his oops, geez. If we look at his payment here, even if he hadn't selected this, because the payment amount that he made was exactly $10, it would assume it is to pay this security. If he had made it at, again, the $14, it would not take it for the security and it would begin to pay.
Interesting.
It would be, it's still supposed to say, oh, it's over $10. I'm going to pay the security and then I'm going to start paying other things. So it should still technically pay this and then put $4 against this one. So that's the anticipated way it should work. When we did testing, for the most part, it was accurate.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Mary.
So what Al was kind of
interesting
going to, just to give a little more information on that. And again, you can go here to financial security, again, in your financial information component.
Because most of you would have received some type of nudge. Sorry to overtalk you a little bit. So what they're expecting you to do at some point in time is to, as Sarah's about to go into, evaluate the security requirement. Sorry to interrupt you, Sarah.
Oh, good. So that's exactly what Al's saying. Here is where you're going to find that total security requirement. The CBSA believes it should be based on their calculations. Now, what Al was explaining was that he wanted to request a reduced amount, and Mary actually was able to request a reduced amount. Since then, the spot has seemed to have disappeared. I haven't been able to locate where we can, but we're supposed to be able to say, hey, you know what? I disagree with this amount because in his situation, it was a one-time thing. Some people may bring in a vehicle that's a very high amount of GST, but it's something that you're bringing in once in a blue moon, and that's a very high security to be covering for something like that. So you do have the opportunity to put in a case with CBSA and request a reduction. More to come on where it is. We've sent off a request, and maybe Mary, unless it was somewhere else, but I've looked everywhere. I thought it had been in here. So.
You spoiled it for us, Mary. Like it's no longer exists.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Tricky,
We'll move to the next question.
I
All right, unless there's something else that we've left unsaid, Mary.
No, that was my question. was just looking for how can an
Lost you, Mary?
importer or a broker
Moving to the
get
next
a
question.
record of what's been paid?
Okay,
Oh,
shall we
mhm.
go to, I see a question
Sorry,
from
did
Richard.
you-
We use GHY for document imaging to search transactions. Does it function the same for the new transaction after CARM went live? Sarah, do you properly understand that? I'm not sure I'm totally understanding the way it's as it's written.
I believe I understand what your question is there, Richard. So there is going to be document imaging is the same. It still operates. The function is similar. Your biggest difference is going to be that we have to keep in mind that there's no longer just one entry to that one transaction. So it's possible you're going to have your transaction and then you have a version 2. So if you go in and you search for the transaction by the 14 digit, but you have, say, 3 versions, it will pull up all versions. If you, I can't recall if they had built it that you can also search by the 19 digits. I believe they have completed that. So if you search by the 19 digits, you would only find that specific version that you're then searching for.
Thanks, Sarah. That's great.
Perfect. Thanks, Richard, for the thumbs up. I think we missed one.
Yeah, there's one at the, can you guys hear me
Pre-CARM
okay?
B3 conversions. Is it only valid for those KDEX submission transactions, or if we have to convert all of the transactions, whether or not KDEX submitted via CCP or CARM client portal, excuse me, we are unable to retrieve the transaction numbers when we input for pre-CARM B3 conversions?
Well, pre-CARM is only valid for KDEX submitted. We can say that for certain. You don't have the ability to convert all transactions en masse. You have to do that individually. Am I missing something?
I'm just trying to, so we are unable to retrieve the transaction numbers when we input the pre-CARM
That sounds
B3
like a
conversion.
potential ticket.
Yeah, I'm not sure I fully understand the question. So if we go over to, I'll just pull up the portal and just see if this helps. So over in create a declaration, sorry, we're doing pre-CARM. It's in here. Wow. So when you go in here and you convert your pre-CARM, this should be where you can begin the process. You would type in your B3 and then you go through and you work to convert it from a B3 to a CAD. If that is not working, then I would state that that should most likely be a ticket, because it should recognize any transaction within the last 4 years that is been KDEXed in the legacy system.
But it's also important to note the conversion is not you just enter the transaction, it just happens. You have to enter multiple other data elements. So you really have to have the transaction handy with you, because in some ways it might seem like you're almost recreating the transaction depending on the nature of what the transaction was.
Difficulty.
Okay, hopefully that answered the question. If not, happy to take it deeper offline, or unless you want to come offline to ask more nuances to that.
I do want to point out actually just a thought on that as well, to be aware of kind of what I was saying is for us as your broker to convert something from pre-CARM is actually a lot easier. So if you do have a broker, I would recommend going that route. Not only is it going to be faster through our system, but through the portal, you're going to only be able to pull in B3 line data, where we already have the CCI line data. So it does pull in more information in our systems.
Very good. Thanks, Sarah.
Guys, can you hear me at all?
Maria, maybe. See where we're at.
You can't hear me, can you?
Help us out, Maria. Or maybe go up to Josh
Yeah,
and
I
start
can
working
hear
down
you.
again, or no, I see Josh.
we're at
We're
Josh.
up. Okay.
Yeah, so the
Maria,
audience,
are you with us? I can't hear you.
the audience can hear me, but
No, we can't hear you. Can you hear us, Maria? Just give us a thumbs up. Okay.
Okay.
Keep going, Sarah.
I'll keep reading. Hopefully you can come back. So Joshua has said, has there been any indication on when reporting in the portal will be accurate, incorrect duty calculations, etc.? I know it's CARM, but is it safe to assume that any fix will be retroactive so that historical reporting, say starting October 21st, will be accurate?
We can't answer that.
Yeah, I mean,
Great question, fair question. We're not touching it.
as for actual, and I mean, I'm just curious a little more on what you mean by duty calculations, because if you mean what you owe on a report, yeah, that's CBSA. If you mean on a specific transaction, if it's been final accounted, that and it's posted, that is what the final accounting would be.
And that's what they feel is accurate. In our case, we're only accounting what we know works. And so if you're an account of ours and you see it's been accounted, it's accurate, both what we understand and what CBSA understands. As I referenced at the start, there's like 100 things that the Canadian Society of Customs Brokers have reported to CBSA, and they went back and forth as to nuanced aspects that aren't properly functioning right now. Your particular nuance, happy to take that offline to say, is that one of them, or is there another reason that your shipments aren't being fully accounted? We've processed, I'm going to say the government right now is probably close to 2 million customs declarations they've posted, and we've posted, quite frankly, about 35% of them, and we are a good sized broker, but we're not that good size of a broker to be speaking, having processed the 35% of Canada's volume. So
yeah, and I think one of the things to keep in mind is you have to make sure you're looking at a CAD that has been final accounted for, is in your list of CAD declarations. If it's noted as due or past due, those ones may not be accurate, because sometimes there's information that changes once we audit. And I've noticed some odd anomalies, but our system has correctly declared it, and then when we send it for final accounting, it does update that. So if you are looking at the ones that aren't yet final accounted, I wouldn't worry too much, but yet worth asking us as your broker, or whoever that broker might be, if you're finding anything that's seems a little odd there.
You want to take Rahita's question, live question right now, and then go to the next one? Maria, do you have to do that, or can we provide access? Wonderful.
Can you hear me,
Go ahead,
guys?
Rahita.
Hi, you can hear me though, right?
No, I can. So I can. I can
Maria's silent, I guess.
You guys can't hear anything.
You can't hear us?
No, I can hear you.
Okay.
But you can't hear us.
Yeah, it sounds like we can't hear anybody suddenly. I don't know.
Oh, okay. So unfortunately, we'll just have to take the type questions based on the technical difficulty. Thanks, Maria. Moving on to the next one. Is there any tips for getting a hold of CRA CARM team regarding registration? We're having a real hard time actually completing the registration to delegate the broker without errors, and then getting a hold of them to deal with tech errors. We are new to importing, so this info is helpful. Well, thank you. Go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, it's been a very large struggle, and I definitely, my heart goes out to importers that are still attempting to register on the portal, because it has been a very difficult process since the portal went live. It seems like there are a lot more technical issues with answering of the questions. It's always been a little challenging to get the right answers, but I guess the main things to point out would be, if you are having a struggle getting through the first part, which would be your legal business name, legal address, my recommendation would be to call CRA. Find out from CRA what they actually have on file. A lot of people think they know their legal address, but oftentimes it can be their accountant, it can be their lawyer. It's not always that legal address was actually applied for against your address you believe to be the main physical address. So I would start there. If it's the questions for your financials, as in what transaction has crossed, anything like that, I would reach out to the broker who did your clearances and see if they can support you there. You're going to have a lot faster time working through us as your broker than you will getting through the portal. But log your ticket. Just log your ticket. Tell them, you know, what's going on.
Sarah, I'll just say, like, so I did get a text from somebody saying that they can hear Maria, but we can't. So, which is interesting. So it's unfortunate, based on the time of, or how long we block for this, rather than resetting our business systems, we will fill the rest of the questions just in the fashion we are, and look forward to connecting with people more live next time, and apologize for the inconvenience. Go ahead, Sarah.
We have another one here from Josh. Is the CAD acceptance rate making any significant improvement? We are continuing to hear through IE Canada and other sources that customs brokers are continuing to have significant acceptance issues. I can't speak to that. I'd say for the most part on our end, if we are filing our entries, like as long as we believe they're ready to go when we do file them, we are receiving an acceptance. We've had
lots of acceptances.
Some struggles for sure, but overall, there haven't been issues there, and most of them we've been able to problem shoot between, say, our software programmer. I would say lineage is probably the only major significance with CBSA.
So other than the codes that are still an issue as far as the relief, as Sarah would say, the size of entries, we have some entries that are well over 5,000, 6,000 lines, and we seem to have an issue at 3,500 lines. So we are working through that, but I think that impacts a very, very small number of importers.
I would agree.
So what do we got next here? So now we got Rahita, and thank you for your patience with us, Rahita.
My question was that if we have applied for a bond with our financial institute, how would we see if it is approved by CBSA on the portal? I am not familiar with this process. Okay, so let's share and give you an idea. So if your financial security has approved it and everything has gone through, then they, depending on, again, whether it was done prior to whether they were ready for API or after, it may be a slight different process, but
and you have to be the business account manager. You can't be the program account manager to see this.
So you have to go into your financial security screen, and over here again, where we pointed out, it's going to give you what your requirements are. It will also give here what your current security coverage is. So if CBSA has approved it, it should note here. And then if you scroll down to your bond list, in here, you should find a list of your bonds. So Al does not have a bond that is a non-cash. If we go over to cash, you can see he had applied for one and then he reversed it, and then he applied for a second one, and it's showing paid. And it shows all your details here and that it's valid.
And if you click edit, I think it might like show the context to it. So you would see if it was a regular bond versus the cash bond, you would see the layout here that it was accepted, the valid. Thank you. The period is valid. And so that's where it would display. So you have to go beneath the fold in financial security, and you have to be a business account manager to see that it's been logged and registered, as Sarah had alluded to, combination of the top and the bottom of this page.
Yeah, so you can check again, just make sure you flip back and forth here.
Thanks for your question, Rahita. And I found it interesting when I reversed my attempt, because I was going to do it for $20 at first, and then I changed my mind. I find it interesting how the portal captures everything. Like I didn't even submit for the 20. I just stopped what I was doing, but it recorded that I reversed my decision on even proceeding. So when you're moving forward in the portal, make sure when you hit anything that you're doing it intentionally.
And then it's possible for some people, just to answer, if you have a surety company that says to you, can you go into the portal and can you input the data for us? You can also go in and you can do that. So I should point that out here. You would go in and you would click on add bond, and then you would continue to a non-cash bond. And your surety company would have already approved you. They're just asking you to input the data. So you would know their name, you would pick them. And then in here, you would provide the bond number that the company has provided to you, complete the information, and then submit off.
Well, thanks, Sarah. What do we got for our next question? Great question, Regina. Thank you. I think we're going to be getting a lot more questions on security as we get closer, although admittedly it's April 19th, but as we get closer to the need to have security posted. We got next.
If one of our brokers is paying duties and GST on our behalf and we have a PAD account and are also paying duties and taxes, when will this sync up? When will that sync up and not be double paid by CBSA? Great question. So I guess a couple things to point out would definitely be, if you have set up PAD, you're going to want to have a discussion with your broker, ensure they understand that you wish to pay direct and that PAD is going to be what's making the payment as opposed to paying your broker. That being said, I don't know the current circumstances on how PAD is operating. We've heard a lot of issues. I think it's still outstanding.
Yeah, I think there's some glitches with how the PAD is working, but the concept of what's being asked in the question, it would appear to me, as Sarah alluded to, you should be doing one or the other. But if you are wanting to see things synced, your requirements of your broker should be that they pay before month end, so that when your PAD comes out, it's for whatever you've given them, versus whatever balance is remaining.
Yeah, and I believe the D memo had stated the PAD was going to take out based on your SOA, but it seems to be more and more prevalent that it is pulling the amount based on what your payment amount due is noting. So again, like Al said, if you've made a payment, but there's still something outstanding, that PAD should then pull that.
Oh, okay. Somebody asked a question earlier. No, PAD is not mandatory. PAD stands for a pre-authorized debit. So if, for instance, I didn't want to miss my month-end payment, I would and can. So again, normally I never pay more than $20. So let's say I'm a little bit absent-minded, and Sarah would say, you don't have to say that, Al, you are a little bit absent-minded. But if I was to say, I don't want to miss my month-end payment and get a late accounting penalty, I would set up a PAD for say $20 that could to a maximum of $20. So whatever is owed normally on my account, it would just be withdrawn. And I think many of you can do that with your other types of Visa and that as well. Hi, I don't want to miss my Visa payment, so I'm going to put in a pre-authorized debit to my bank account. I'm going to authorize it to a certain threshold, and you'll know that you'll never get a late accounting penalty based on that happening in the background.
All right, I'm just hopping over to the chat to see if we missed anything in here. Has CBSA offered any timeline on when the help desk phone will be reactivated? Our BUs continue to report that when they call the help desk for support, they receive an automated message that the lines are down and to complete a form. The lines are up. It's just if they're overwhelmed, I don't think you're getting through. Just like any phone line, it's at the point where they are completely overwhelmed. You're going to do the same thing. If you call in versus go to the online ticketing, the CARM help desk is going to give you a ticket. So if you're finding you're not able to get through, or you're waiting on hold for an extreme amount of time, it's probably faster to get a ticket.
So our association, the very first line they have in regards to what's happening right now, there are a high number of tickets on the help desk relating to questions on tariff, excise, and exemptions. that the EDI API client support representatives are not equipped to resolve. So it's just something we're going to have to deal with until they work through it.
So then Mary asked, do you think that they are aware declarations with annex codes that are not working will probably not be confirmed?
Absolutely, they
Yeah.
are.
I mean, we can't finalize them. The thing to keep in mind is, so during testing, there were some new links that CBSA came out with, and in some cases working with CRA too. So there is an exemption code for food products or other products that would require an extra exemption because it's possible there's, say, cannabis in it. So CRA had created an exemption code and said, if the product does not have cannabis, you need to apply this. And during testing, we were able to test it. It operated as it should, but they didn't create that link for any of their annex codes or many of the other excise codes. They just allowed them still as a free flow. So during testing, you could apply an annex to any HS code and it was working. Post testing, they then created that link between the specific classification and the specific annex. So until CBSA agrees that HS code can have that annex applied, they're aware that transaction is going to sit there and they're going to be held, because we as brokers, and I'm sure all brokers, are not going to have their clients pay for something that they do not agree should be paid.
I do want to say also though, Mary, like one of the things that we are getting some information on, it's certainly not all information. So our society has also received this notification. Please see this list of new tariff classifications with annex codes or relief updates that will be active by the end of the day, November 22nd. And then there's 4 annex codes and 4 tariff classifications. So as we receive that information, it allows us to plan what we can send on your behalf. But there's a lot of things that we don't have any context on. But it's nice when we receive that and have awareness.
Deb here says that she works for a small US-based research and development company that sends a handful of shipments to a business in Canada. Currently, they do not receive any shipments and their program type is import only. Do they need to enlist or enroll in the export program? By all means, you can if you choose to, but there is no requirement to apply in the export program unless you are going to be exporting.
Thank you.
Right, I think there was another Q&A. Let me go back. If we do our own entries and pay our dues at the port, why does it show on our portal as if it would be open? So what I'm assuming you mean by that is your C type is still showing as open and not acquitted or final accounted. Unfortunately, I really can't state that is a CBSA issue. They should be closing it. So when you show up at the border, they scan your entry. That should in turn be closing it in the portal.
But they're behind in all reconciliations. So once accounting gets it, it'll probably be updated at that time.
But you've paid it, you've done what you need to do, and you've got your goods. So I would hold off. You're just gonna file a ticket and sit there with the rest of us waiting. Andy, if PAD is not set up, it means I will not be able to enroll in the RPP program, and duties and taxes will need to be paid prior to customs release. Can we pay through the CARM client portal with a credit card? So I just want to clarify again, a PAD is not mandatory. It's just one form of payment that you can make. So there are several forms of payment. You can pay via credit card right in the portal, as one you alluded to. You can set up PAD. You can pay your customs broker, and that broker would pay upon your behalf. You can also pay online banking, and my understanding is CBSA is also still accepting check, although they will be phasing that out, but I think they're not so concerned about that one at this point. So you have multiple options on how you pay. The release prior to payment program is more in regards to that you're going to have an agreement stating that you will you will pay, or your payment can be deferred till after. And that's why we keep talking about the need for posting security. CBSA is granting you 180 days before you need to post that security. But that security is you providing either a cash deposit as your agreement, or as a written agreement with a surety company stating that you will make those payments after the fact. And that's where that requirement will come in. You should already be enrolled in the program if you're not a new importer. If you just got your business number and you just tried to set up CARM, then you actually have to complete your registration. You have to apply for your import. You have to apply for the enrollment in an import program. And then once you have that, then you can apply for the release prior to payment program.
We might be getting close to done, I'm thinking.
I believe so. I think we have one more question we can take here. And then I guess we'll have to wrap it up for Maria, since we can't.
Okay, sounds good.
Or she could wrap it up for us.
No, she's giving us the thumbs up, sure.
Okay, so Sandra says, so we have multiple brokers, one of which is claiming they will not pay on our behalf. I understand funds paid are going to take oldest, so it could be for any import. Is it a good idea for me to create a pad and put a certain amount to cover what the broker that will not pay on our behalf, just to be on the safe side? Great question. So, it's definitely going to be, each broker is going to make a company decision on whether they choose to pay on importer's behalf or not. So if your broker has then made that decision that they would prefer that you pay direct, how you choose is up to you. I mean, they should still be telling you what is due. So you should know, if all your other brokers are paying on your behalf and you're paying them what they advise is due, then you could set up PAD or credit card, or you could do online banking, whatever you feel is going to be the most appropriate.
I think the one comment would be on that. If it's not paid at month end, the late accounting penalties will apply to you, not the broker, and the broker won't even be able to see them. So I think that's a business decision and handle accordingly. With that, I think we're going to wind down this particular session. We appreciate that people have been tuning in to the open mic, and we apologize that the mic was a little bit silenced or muffled this time. There'll probably be another session as a result because of that. We certainly appreciate the ability to connect with you, share what we have heard and learned, because we're all learning in this together. We were recently online with a CBSA in the regional area, and they appreciated that same type of continuity. So thank you for being part of this. You will receive, as Maria alluded to, the particular recording, and any unanswered questions, if there happen to be any, that will be coming through. Thank you again for your time, and with that, have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.